What's up, Degenerate Nation? Welcome to the Big Bets on Campus podcast. This is the college basketball weekend betting preview. I'm Stuckey, and joining me, as always, my fellow BBOC co-hosts, Greg Waddell and the one and only Jim Root from the Three Man Weave. A lot to get to today, as always. We'll get to our futures roundtable. A little quick rant of the week coming up. We'll buy low and or sell high on some teams, and then we'll go rapid fire through a very, very appetizing and intriguing weekend slate with a lot of marquee games on the docket. So excited to get your guys' thoughts there. Let's get right into it with a rant of the week. Could be anything. Takeaway, could be bad, good, indifferent, wherever you want to go with it. I have a couple of things I want to touch on. One is it's ugly what's going on with the WAC and Utah Valley. I mean, they're not even streamed. Their games aren't even going to be streamed now. That just got announced. The rest of the season. I assume they're going to sue, but as of right now, they're not going to be in the final WAC conference tournament. And I mean, they would probably be. Would they be? Probably be the favorite.
Yeah,
I mean,
I think
yeah,
so.
them
Yeah.
Baptist and Arlington would be close behind, but Utah Valley would have been the favorite. So now it's a six-team tournament. I already know that I'm going to lose money on Tarleton in that, betting on the upside of Tarleton. I never know what's going on with that team, who's coaching them, if Dior Johnson's playing, where Freddie Hicks is in the country. Who knows, but uh I'm already going to lose money on that. But this is maybe it's just a nice homage to the final Great West conference tournament. It's 10, I don't know, 13 years ago, maybe 2013, when and that happened because Utah Valley was leaving, oddly enough. Chicago State won on the final day to finish in a tie for last, but they got the three seed in that five-team bracket, and then they ended up winning it. But they went to the CIT. You didn't get an NCAA tournament berth. The WAC winner will go to the NCAA tournament, but one of my all-time favorite conference tournaments, the old Great West. So yeah, pretty sad what's going on in the WAC. Some other key takeaways. The UNLV Fresno game was wild, by the way. Um, I had some awful meltdowns. Whoever I bet on the last 2 minutes is insane. The meltdowns I've had over the past week. Finally, Okori got me a nice winner with us. So shout out to Ibuka for the layup at the bell to get Stanford +4 to the window. But the Bonnies against Mason was a nightmare out of hell. I mean, they couldn't. This is a team that's like 80% from the line. They could not make a free throw. Blew a 14-point lead with 8 minutes to go. We're just in complete meltdown mode. I mean, I could go on and on, but Bradley against Valpo, they gave up a three. They fall down, give up another three, miss a free throw, and then Valpo doesn't foul over the last 20 seconds. Um, Cal Baptist luckily won in overtime, but they were up 10 with a minute to go and blew that lead. Got 9. Shout out to Corey for getting me right. I needed that. So just the ups and downs of college basketball. It's a grind. You got to just accept you're going to get screwed. Teams are going to melt down, and it's part of why I love it though. And I know we're going to talk about this later, but actually I'll save that. Yeah, I'll save that and get to you guys. So Jim, I'll go to you first. Any thoughts on the whack uh and where do you want to go?
Yeah, the whack makes me sad. I love whack Vegas. It got my guy Ben typically calls the game on ESPN Plus, Ben Wilson. So he's got an affinity for it out there at the Orleans. I know they've like bopped around different venues out there because they just go wherever they're welcome or wherever there's not another game. But if it's six teams, it's going to be a short tournament. And
Yeah, there's
before
no
you even
playing. There's
said
gonna be no playing now, that playing game that they have.
Yeah, before you even said who you were going to lose money on, I knew where you were going with that with Tarleton. That's going to be a mess. My mini rant is just what the heck is the ACC schedule? Why does I know this has kind of been a thing since preseason, but why doesn't every team play each other? I understand we have these super conferences and there's going to be unbalanced leagues, but in an 18 team league, if they're playing an 18 team or 18 game schedule, every team should play every team once, and then you play a rival twice. We don't have Miami Duke. We don't have Clemson, Virginia at all this year. That makes no sense to me. I know Florida State isn't very good this year, but no Louisville, Florida State. There's been some classic games between those two over the years. It's nonsensical to me. Somebody in Discord I'm in told me that the ACC football schedule next year, not every team is playing the same amount of games. I don't understand the conference at all, what they're doing. These super conferences are too big. It's dumb. I hate it. Like no Duke Miami is ridiculous with the coaching matchup there, potentially with Lucas coming off the staff. No Virginia Clemson. That's my rant. I think it's utterly outrageous.
The team that got probably screwed the most, not the biggest fan of them. Love me some Boopy Miller, but SMU's played North Carolina, Clemson, Duke, Virginia Tech, Virginia, Louisville, NC State. They have Louisville again coming up. Their schedule gets a little easier now, but they've had a gauntlet so far in the ACC. But yeah, it doesn't make much sense. I agree. But the ACC did rebound at least this year because last year was pretty ugly. We only had four teams get in, and it's you could have what, seven, eight this year, possibly.
Yeah, it's a lot better. So I guess maybe whatever they're doing schedule-wise worked out. I think really it's just they won non-conference games, which is what they did not do the last 2 years.
Yeah. Greg, you want to touch on a pretty hot topic, a man who's been talked about a lot over the past 24 hours.
Yeah, talking heads have had their fill. You guys took care of the nonsense from conferences. I'll take care of the nonsense from one Jeremy Fears. I'm tired of the discussion around it. Obviously, I'm tired of his antics, but I don't understand what's so hard about just saying he's dirty. He is, and then letting Michigan State fans say we have to root for him anyway. Like, we don't need apologies from Michigan State fans. We don't need to blame this on opposing coaches and what's being said or not being said. We don't need to blame this on Tom Izzo and accountability. He doesn't need to be benched before Illinois this weekend. He's a dirty player. There have been dirty players before. And when your team has a dirty player, it sucks. He's also really good. And Michigan State fans are allowed to root for him. It sucks. But like, I just don't get what's so complicated about that. Those things can happen at the same time. We don't need a million talking pieces on how to fix this problem. He can fix the problem. He's not fixing the problem. Maybe he will one day. Maybe he'll snap his fingers about it. But I'm very tired. It's disrupting fun basketball games. I mean, obviously, I care about the Michigan State rivalry. I like watching Michigan State and the toughness things they do at home. Michigan State, Illinois this weekend should be incredible if we can all just shut up and accept that this is what it is without making it bigger than it needs to be.
Well, there's something ironic about your first topic being something that you're saying is it shouldn't be talked about anymore. But so I don't know how to respond. You don't want anyone to talk about it. But yeah, I'll talk about Michigan State more in general. I mean, fears is we talked about this last week. Like, I don't think Michigan State has Final Four national title upside because of their offense. And like, they could lose to anyone that can take away the Minnesota's probably the best transition defense in the sport for my money. I mean, when you look at what they take away, I mean, their transition rate allowed this year is 8%. The next lowest is Liberty at I think 12. So I mean, they have the lowest transition rate allowed by far in the country, and I think they're like 97th percentile in efficiency when they do. You take away, so that's why it was just a nightmare matchup, Minnesota for Michigan State. You take away Michigan State's transition offense and you make them operate in the half court, it gets ugly quick. So that's one, like, I don't see it. And Fears is part of the problem. Look, plays hard, controversial, good player, but his offensive, arsenal is limited for sure. I mean, just let that guy catch and shoot threes until the cows come home. Jim, any thoughts on Sparty? I mean, if we'll do buy low, sell high in a minute. We'll actually do that before the futures roundtable. But like, if there was a time to buy, we want to buy in college basketball and sports in general and investing, you want to buy low, sell high. If there was a time to like buy Michigan State, right? Maybe it's now. I'm just not there because of their offense. Do you see anything worth uh, buying into for Sparty?
Not really. I mean, I think they're probably priced fairly, or maybe even a little high at this point. Like, I don't really think they're the 10th best team in the country. I agree they're the fourth best offense. I'm not buying a top 50, or excuse me, the fourth best defense. I'm not buying the fourth best offense. As you said, you take away transition, and if you can defensive rebound at all, then they can't really do anything in the half court either. It's a lot of volleyball on the glass for them. They're incredible on the boards, so it's much easier said than done, but they're not going to give you a lot of spacing. Fears is just going to kind of get into the lane, loves to throw up some oops or some floaters, and they try to just go after and get that. I think they're priced fine, and without dabbling too far into the Fears discussion to not incite too much out of Greg. Yeah, I mean he's dirty, and if they like opt to suspend him for a game to try to send a message, then I'm fine with that, and let's move on. And if he does it again, then you re-explore it. That's I'm good with that.
I think they just sit him and comes off the bench in like the under 16 timeout. Uh,
Gets a huge crowd eruption when he comes
yeah,
back in. It
yeah,
like helps spark the crowd. Yeah.
Guys,
yeah. He'll go.
if they start Denim Wojcik against Illinois, their backup point guard's out.
Yeah, is he hurt? What's the status on it? I didn't even see that because
It
he left and didn't
sounds
come back.
ominous. They're not saying anything, but they were like, this doesn't look good. He might miss the rest of the year.
Oh
So like
man.
I don't know if you can do this anyway. It's all a charade to me. Just he's dirty. Let him play. Whatever. Who cares?
I
So
want Denim Wojcik minutes. I want him. I want to watch him.
Wojcik versus the hottest player in college basketball history right now, Wagler, who can't even miss from 50 feet. Um, but I mean, so Fears has got to play. He's got to play like 95% of minutes now,
Yeah.
right? I mean, he plays like 80, but that's yeah. If Ugochukwu's out for the year, that's troubling. Fears can get into some foul trouble sometimes too. I mean, obviously, I mean, that would be a big loss. I mean, because you can't have. I mean, like Tang and Fort, they can't play point. Um, man, that would definitely hurt their depth. All right, let's get in. Let's buy low, sell high. You can go either direction or both. I'll make mine quick. I'm both in the same conference. I'm going to go to the SEC. I'm all the way out on Alabama. I don't care what happens with Bediako. This team. Look, their offense, if you look at the metrics, yeah, maybe it's a little better this year than it was last year. The top five offense. They can, they're going to shoot a ton of threes, which does make their games high variance. And on any given day, they can play with anyone. But their defense is significantly worse than last year. And they are not anywhere in the realm of having the defense that's capable of making a deep running, winning the national title. Could they get the Elite Eight or Final Four if they're making the threes and it breaks right? Sure, but I don't think that they can beat these elite teams. And I think the last two games were very telling. All that back and forth with Florida, and look, you lose at Florida, you're a sizable underdog. That's fine, but to just get destroyed and it be uncompetitive was telling. And then Bama last year, and Bama in this spot over the past couple years against A&M, they bury them. All right, they win that game by double digits. And the fact that they had to barely hold on and gave up 97. And look, credit A&M. Like A&M is way better than I thought they'd be. Buckyball is translating way quicker with that cast of characters than I thought it would be. That team is feisty. That team fights. And if that team is a 7 or 8 seed in like you're a 1 or 2, that's the team you don't want to play because of their style. That is a team you don't want to see in your second game if you're a 1 or 2 seed. So I got to give a lot of credit to Bucky, but I'm all the way out on Alabama, and I'm kind of starting to buy into a team that I was out on, and that's Tennessee, and that's just because of the development and progression of Nate Ament. I mean, this is a guy who looked timid, especially when he went up against like elite competition, a bit soft, a bit, just I don't know if I really belong here yet. And it's been a rocket ship watching his development and his confidence and just his ability to get his own shot, and his offense in the half court raises the ceiling for this Tennessee team significantly. It's not as elite of a defense as Barnes has had in the past, but it's still very good. They still can just abuse teams on the offensive glass. Their depth, their interior depth is building and getting more confidence. So Tennessee is a team that I think is a lot more dangerous than I actually thought a couple weeks ago. Jim, I'll go to you. Any quick thoughts on either one of those teams?
Yeah, selling Bama. I pitched them to be the Final Four or part of our futures portfolio last week, and I wasn't totally shocked by what happened against Florida, but I was really disappointed in the Texas A&M game. I'm with you. That is a game that past Alabama teams just light the world on fire, and they made 16 threes, but they had to take 48 to make them, and they only forced 6 turnovers against A&M. They don't do that at all. Bottom 5 in the country in turnover rate. Like they defend like Creighton with Kalkbrenner, except they don't rebound like Creighton with Kalkbrenner. They don't block shots. They don't take away twos quite as well. It's a
Foul all the
completely,
time.
yeah, it's a broken defense in a lot of different ways. And the offense, while good, they don't have the high floor. Like in the past, Oates kind of emphasized the offensive glass, and this team doesn't do it. So it's just
Yep.
total reliance on jump shooting. And yeah, for that reason, I think they probably are much more prone to an upset than typical Alabama teams.
I'll save getting your thoughts on Tennessee for later. Little teaser there. Uh, but I'll come back to you for buy low. So I'll go to Greg. And Greg, feel free to share any thoughts on either one of those teams and who are you looking to buy low or sell high on?
Well, I agree with your praise for Amen. I was very out on him earlier in the season, and I mean, we probably shouldn't be surprised. You look at the rest of this freshman class, anybody rated in the general realm where he's rated is phenomenal right now. But I think he's getting more comfortable shouldering the burden night to night, which maybe is a surprise. Sometimes you see the freshman wall in early February, but they just put so much on him and Gillespie every single night, and I feel like it was a little bit of a shock to the system by the end of non-conference play that was a night in, night out thing for him. You can see that he's sort of taken ownership of that responsibility. So I think it's a good shout. I'm going to stay in the Big Ten, of course, for a buy low on Washington, who I think is about as low as I'll ever look to buy low on right now. They're 12-11 overall, 4-8 in conference play. I mean, they need to go. How many games do they have left? 8, 7-1 down the stretch to like really feel like they've got a shot to make the NCAA tournament. But the thing is, I think they can. I mean, they had 6 of their first 12 games in conference play came against top 15 teams in the country. Like they just had the absolute front-loaded schedule, the inverse of all these great teams that now have to play each other down the stretch. They have UCLA at UCLA this Saturday, and then a bunch of easy home games, road games at Maryland and Rutgers and Oregon. Like that's the schedule. And they don't play a top 30 team. I don't know. I watched that Iowa game in its entirety last night. Full disclosure, I was on Washington money line, and they got Sturts in the second half. And Sturts is phenomenal. McCollum's been great. That team is clearly separating as one of the upper echelon teams in the Big Ten. Washington hasn't yet, but I still like the pieces. I think with Ognisevich back and Steinbach, I think he can kind of dominate the very bottom of the barrel in this league that really hasn't been put on a tee for them. I just won't be surprised. Ken Pom has them projected as winning 7 of their final 8. I think that's extremely doable when you look at the schedule. And I think almost so much revolving door personnel wise early. It's like we don't know
Yep.
who our guards are. Now we've figured out who we have. Zoom Diallo had 12 assists against Iowa. I think it's a good buy low candidate.
Yeah, I agree. I'll be looking at them depending on the number at UCLA. I think that Washington can just dominate the offensive glass there, which is really going to raise their floor and keep them in that game. I think UCLA still has a little bit of two-way 3-point regression coming its way too, but I, yeah, I like the Huskies there, and they're they're certainly live to make the tournament with this remaining schedule. Jim, what do you got?
Yeah, I just want to say if you're the last East Coast road trip they have to do, as Greg said, is Maryland and Rutgers. Like there are no more doable road games in that conference than those two. So that sets up well for them. I'm selling George Mason, unfortunately, and they kind of started it Wednesday night. They lost at home to Duquesne, and it's been
Who
a
was
little.
down to multiple? Who was down multiple starters? They had like one guy coming off the bench.
Yep, and Mason got Alan Spock back, and he's been back, and just didn't quite push them over the top, and they've kind of been playing with fire. It's been close games against a lot of teams that are worse than them. And one of my other pod co-hosts, Will Warren, talked about how teams don't make threes in the final 8 minutes against them. Teams were shooting like 12% from three in the final eight minutes. It was a lot of good fortune with regression potentially coming, and I think we're starting to see it. Their schedule is tough. St. Joe's is playing a lot better right now than road games at Richmond, GW, Dayton coming to town, then at St. Joe's. Sure, Bonaventure's kind of having some problems, but you close the year at VCU, home to St. Louis. Like, this team was in the maybe mix for an at-large and was a game behind SLU and chasing them for the title. I don't think they're going to end up putting much of a fight against SLU in the A10 for the conference title. Now, the end of the season game is going to be a great atmosphere. Shout out to Fairfax. They're going to load that place up for SLU coming to town. But I think in the weeks leading up to it, we see George Mason kind of drift back to the A10 pack a little bit.
I would agree. I don't think they're making the tournament. They've been so lucky in so many close games. Uh, Bonnie's is like the opposite. I've been betting Bonnie's a bunch lately. They keep losing like every close game. I don't know if part of it is just they wear down, which could be part of it because again they don't have any bench and they. Uh, but I mean I love Frank Mitchell. I Simmons and Bowen. Charles has been a pleasant surprise. But they just don't have any depth at all. That's their problem. But they've been extremely unlucky. I mean, all season long. But yeah, don't hate the look. All right, let's get to the futures roundtable. Let's see. So far we have. Do we have a recap here? Do we have two or three so far?
We've got St. Louis. It's at the bottom, I think, of the outline. St. Louis, and we
Oh,
added
here we go.
Purdue 6-1 last week.
Yeah, Purdue Final Four, 6-1. St. Louis Final Four, 80-1. Don't mind either one of those buys. I have no regret. You guys have any regret on either one?
Not at all.
No, I'm glad we took Purdue and not Bama last week. You guys made correct votes.
So, all right, mine's complicated, so I'll go last. I'm gonna make you guys choose one of two because I want to make cases for two, and then we'll vote. Jim, I think you made a case for this theme already, or maybe this is Greg and you're taking it.
I did Virginia a couple weeks ago, but Jim can break it for me.
I'm gonna run it back. And the one like not issue with this is, but it's not some like perfect time to buy. It's not before they have a couple high leverage games where they could swing up, but at some point, I feel like people got to wake up to the price. And as Greg kind of said 2 weeks ago, the ceiling's really high. Since January 1st, they're ninth in the country per Bart Torvik. They're an awesome offensive rebounding team. They've been really good away from home. Some of their best wins are on the road. They have size, shot blocking, and a ton of shooting. They don't have like the star the way I hesitate to do this, compare them a little bit to Illinois, but it's a half court execution based team with a ton of size, a ton of shooting, great spacing. So there's always open lanes for cutting, for driving. They get some easy buckets that way, and it's just hard to score on them. They're not going to force a ton of turnovers, but they force you into jumpers because of their size at the rim. And they're in line for like a 4 seed right now, and it's 20-1 to make the Final Four. They're like analytically equal with Gonzaga, who's going to get a 4 seed or 3 seed too. And Gonzaga's plus 950. Like, I don't see why the price is so egregiously different from a team like that. A team like Alabama, they're going to get a better seed then and have a much better price. Like, I don't know if there's just a little bit of hesitance because they started the season so low. But man, every year an ACC team makes a run, and I think Virginia is fully capable of doing it.
Yeah, I think it's a decent price. I mean, Torvik, 10% for Final Four percentage on Torvik.
That's not bad. That's
so
not bad.
it's not bad at all. At 20-1. Yeah, I mean, your point about road games and then their style being able to travel and play on neutral courts on the road because of their interior day and because of their rebounding ability on both ends. Like that plays anywhere. So yeah, I definitely don't hate the look. Greg, before I get yours, you mentioned the Illinois comparison in a way. I know you're extremely close in the Big Ten. What are your thoughts on Illinois and what's going to happen? Like what has happened with Boswell out and like with him without Boswell, and what do you do when he comes back? And what? That's a very odd situation because they turned into a rocket ship without him. I mean, I think per Evan Mia, if you look, I mean, Boswell was their second highest rated offensive player. Um, and he obviously has a lot of skills on the defensive end, but is like, how do you think about that whole Illinois thing with and without Boswell?
Great question. So I actually think the rocket ship took off before Boswell got hurt. I think it was when they figured out they need to slow tempo down dramatically, which is something Brad Underwood teams haven't done really in 3 or 4 years. And it started right at the end of the non-conference, and it worked. And then they made it maybe 3 or 4 games in the conference play. I forget when Kylan got hurt. It's definitely gotten more shooting on the floor, and Davis analytically is in all of their best lineups according to every possible lineup data service you can find. But the thing is, I think as long as they don't go heavy on Stojakovic Boswell lineups together, they'll navigate this. And if you think about it, Underwood has been, experienced with dealing with this with when Terrence Shannon returned a couple years ago when they figured out Marcus Damask booty ball in the half court. I think it's easier with Wagler. If anything, Boz is just going to help their perimeter defense. I'm not all that worried about it, but I would like him sooner rather than later to return so we can get a couple games under their belt before March.
I also would mention, I think one of the biggest differences with this Illinois team might be their defense. I mean, so before you used to think about Illinois as like the purest of drops. And I mean, you just look at and then one of the things that you're going to get with drop coverage is the 3-point rate is going to be really low, right? And you're going to take away the three, you're going to take away the perimeter shooters. You go back to 2020, this Illinois team under Underwood, 39th at 3-point attempt rate allowed, 38th the next year, 8th, 16th, 7th, 3rd. This year, 239th. They have changed their defense schematically. They're mixing in some zone. They're not as strict of drop. They're willing to give up threes here, and they're switching things up. And I think their defense, as a result, has a higher ceiling because it's not as predictable. And I think that's extremely helpful in a tournament setting when you're going to go up against, elite guards. And so I think that obviously their offense, isn't it the highest, as of right now, the highest rated offense in Ken Palm history?
Yep.
But I think their defense doesn't get talked about enough and some of the changes they've made structurally. Jim, do you have any thoughts on Illinois before we get to Greg's pick?
They hired, I forget his name, the assistant from Colgate.
Cam Crocker.
There it is. Thank you. I knew Greg would be all over it. But yeah, he was brought in like Colgate's whole defense was very scouting report based. Like game to game, they play a little bit differently. And obviously this team is still set up with the drop structure, but I think being more responsive to the other team and not just coming out with here's what we do, good luck against it. That has helped quite a bit. So I think that was a really smart hire by Underwood, and I think he's made a lot of really good staff hires over his career there.
Yep. All right, so we got UVA Final Four. Greg, what do you got?
All right, I'm kicking myself because I typed up a write-up on this team for last week's episode. It was 60-1. I looked at the schedule and I said, they got a road game coming that I'm worried about. Two of them, actually, because they had the weekend game at Georgia. And I talked myself out of it. I'm kicking myself that I talked myself out of it. They're down to 40-1. It's Texas A&M. I think the longer we wait, the more this drops. That's my expectation at this point. You guys gave them a little bit of love. I know we're all collectively out on Bama, and I agree. But this A&M team is just really impressive all around to me. There's not really a major red flag on the profile on either end of the court. They're top 40 in both offense and defense. They take more threes than they give up. They shoot it well from everywhere. They're decent enough on the boards. I just kind of buy the entire system with a little bit upgraded talent in buckyball this year. I think you look at what they've done on the road. It's impressed me. Road wins at Auburn, at Georgia, took Tennessee to double overtime, and obviously almost win the Bama game, put 97 on them. I just think this team travels, and you look at where they're priced. This is the important part of why I'm nominating them. They're 40-1 on DraftKings right now. 40-1 is the same as Clemson, as UCLA. It's double the odds that you can get for St. John's and Kentucky right now. Meanwhile, I'll give you a Torvik sample since we kind of did the same for Virginia. If you go back over the last 12 games for Texas A&M, They're 14th nationally going back to the middle of December, 10-2 in that span, ahead of Virginia and Tennessee and Michigan State. So I just think this is the best price you can get. Like I said, I'm kicking myself. I didn't nominate it a week ago, but I think we'll look up in a week or two and see them 18 to 20 to 1.
If they beat Florida this weekend, man, that'd be the right timing. You got to get in before
Yeah,
that if they
timing
knock
wise,
them off.
because they're not going to get hurt too much from losing that game, but they'll definitely raise some more eyebrows if they win that game. All right, I got two because I want to tout both of these because I'm going to bet them myself. I want you guys to choose which one to put in. They're conference futures. So number one, I'm going to try to do this without getting too complicated. Number one is Illinois to win the Big Ten plus 120 out there. I think they should be favored. Here's the thing. Illinois is we just talked about their defense, their offense with Wagler is incredible. As of right now, the standings, Illinois is tied. They have one game. Michigan's going to beat Penn State. I assume they're up 20 right now. I don't know. So they're going to be tied at 11-1 each. So if Illinois beats Michigan State this weekend, then I think they're in phenomenal position. But let's say they drop that game, and so they'd be one game behind Michigan. They still host Michigan, and they split with Nebraska. They won at Purdue. That is super important because every tiebreaker will go if they beat Michigan at home. Like, this is basically a bet on them beating Michigan at home. Or if they win at Michigan State, they can probably afford to lose that Michigan game because Michigan's schedule, Michigan still goes to Purdue. They go to Iowa. They have the rematch with Michigan State. They're at Ohio State. Like, their schedule is significantly more difficult than Illinois, who is at Michigan State. Then it's home against Wisconsin, home against Indiana. They make the West Coast trip to USC and UCLA. Then they get Michigan at home. Then they close the season with Oregon and Maryland. I mean, their schedule is real easy. Then you might say, okay, do we have to worry about Nebraska or Purdue? Maybe, but I mean, Nebraska and Purdue, number one, they play each other. You're going to get a loss there. And like the round robin records, if they beat Michigan, they're going to have the head-to-head record. Like, there are so many different ways that Illinois can win the regular season. And I looked at all the tiebreakers. So I think getting this ahead of that Michigan State, because they win the Michigan State game, you looking at the schedules, they're going to be in extremely an extremely good spot to win the Big Ten. So that's my first suggestion. My other, really funny. I was looking at this on FanDuel, and I was gonna bet it, and it was like at 4 a.m, and it got hit, and it went down 50 cents. I don't know who else in the world it was. I was like, who else could be looking at this right now? So it got this a little bit worse price, but St. John's to win the Big East plus 350-ish. Here's the case. If they host UConn, so you want to get this before UConn game on Friday, coin flip game. They swept UConn last year. They sweep UConn this year, they're winning the Big East, the Big East regular season, which is possible. But why I like this at this price is because if they split with UConn, the difference in their remaining schedules is St. John's hosts Villanova. UConn goes to Villanova. And if UConn loses that game and St. John's wins that game at home, Villanova is going to finish third in the Big East. St. John's would have the tiebreaker over UConn. So I think where they got Nova, and they already beat Nova on the road, I think gives them a little bit of an advantage. Illinois is probably my favorite, but I wanted to throw that one out there too, timing-wise. Jim, I'll ask you, which do you prefer of those two?
I think I prefer Illinois. St. John's offense is concerning to me, but they have it all in front of them with both UConn games still to play. And as you mentioned, they won at Villanova. They got the schedule benefit of playing that at the 76ers arena, whereas UConn has to go to Finneran and actually play on campus. So I think that's a little tougher for the Huskies. It makes sense to me there, but the way you set up the Illinois one with the schedule and the tiebreakers, I'm buying it pretty hard. And that team is playing so well right now.
Yep. Greg, you agree? Illinois over St. John's?
I think Illinois is playing as good as anybody maybe even including Arizona in the country. I think my only question with this bet right now, if they beat Michigan State, what do we think happens to that price?
They'll be like -1.
You think it jumps
Yes.
a lot?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because that's a coin flip game. And with the schedules, I think they'd be like -120, -130.
I'll issue a quick correction. UConn does play at the 76ers arena when they go to Nova too. So for any listeners screaming at us, I got you there.
You said you still like the bet if they lose to Michigan State. I think I'd like it more if they lose to Michigan State. And that drops to like 2-1 or more.
No, I wouldn't drop the 2-1, but
With a loss?
+1. Maybe you can get like +130, +1. Well, you can get +120 now. I think that they should be favored uh, right now. But you like Illinois this weekend, so you should be
I
on
do
board.
too. Look, I'm going to advocate for betting Illinois in just a moment. I guess my feel, which you guys
Well,
would,
first you got to just choose one of the two. Then we'll vote. Then you can share your
well,
thoughts.
let's do Illinois.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So 1 for Virginia, 2 for Texas A&M, 3 for Illinois to win the Big Ten. 3, 2, 1.
Wow. Okay.
Virginia. Jim wins.
Okay.
And we're giving love to Greg too, because he brought this up originally.
I'm never going to win a futures roundtable week.
You won this
we
one.
only
You
vote
get
yours
partial
after
credit.
someone else uses it. It's like this has got to be like a running joke thing now. When next time I really really like one of Greg's, I'm just going to vote for Jim's and then bring it myself the next week. All right. So updated, we have 3 Final Four futures. St. Louis 80-1, Purdue 6-1, and now Virginia 20-1. I like our portfolio. All right, let's get to the weekend. Go a little rapid fire here. Well, before we get to some of our best bets, I do want to quickly pass along an incredible offer going on for Action Pro. If you're not already an Action Pro member, now's a great time with Super Bowl 60 right around the corner. Action Pro users get real-time, immediate notifications when any of our action experts track a pick, whether that's Chris Raybon, Sean Koerner, myself, or any of our experts. You want to get that notification before lines start to move, especially important with props, with the Super Bowl coming up. And to celebrate Super Bowl 60, you can get $60 off a year of Action Pro right now. Just go to actionnetwork.com/pro to get started. That's actionnetwork.com/pro for $60 off an annual subscription at actionnetwork.com/pro. All right, let's go around the horn and talk Friday. If you really would like something Friday, but Saturday, Sunday slates all in play. I got to start with, I guess I always got to start with an ugly one. That's my MO. All right, let's go. Let's go with, there's both of these teams are playing right now or tonight, so I don't, that could change the formula. There's injuries, but Ryder, who's that's
Oh God. Oh God.
against Merrimack, the best team in the conference. This Ryder team, like one of the least experienced teams in the country, they're playing better of late, but I like this matchup against Merrimack because what can Ryder do? Ryder can do one thing very well, and that's offensive rebound. And against that Merrimack zone, that's going to go a long way in keeping him in this game. Go back to the first meeting at Merrimack. Ryder lost by 2. They out rebounded Merrimack 41-18 in the game. They can get enough offensive rebounds here. It's about time to sell high on this Merrimack team, by the way. No one, I get that their zone is very good. I love Joe Gallo. But this is just too good of a matchup in a game that's probably going to be ugly. It's going to be very slow, limited possessions. Offensive rebounds will keep Ryder in this. I don't know. Can we get 10? I would love 10. It'll probably be like 8.5. But Ryder's my first look. It's probably one of the ugliest games on the board. But
Yeah, you
Greg,
you have to start with a bottom 15 team in the country. It's like you're trying to out ugly yourself. It's
I
incredible.
had it circled. I had it circled. It is my ugliest game on here. The other ugliest one I have is Lamar, um, who I think doesn't match up terribly with Stephen F. I know Stephen F. Austin's been just a monster at home, but we might get a good price on Lamar um, on the road. But Greg, what do you got? I know that you're not going to go down to the bottom 15. I can always count on you for that.
Oh yeah, if you need the sexy games, I'm here for it. I'll go back to your Illini stuck. I do think they get a statement win at the Breslin Center. Michigan State's entire thing for 30 years: defend, rebound, run. Okay, let's go through those boxes. Defend, the number one offense in Ken Pom history. Easier said than done. Rebound, Illinois is elite on both ends on the boards. I think they're going to be up for that challenge against Carson Cooper, who's really been struggling in the last two games. Run, good luck against an Illinois team that has been limiting possessions so well for 2 months now. I think they're going to do a great job against Michigan State's transition attack. Think about that half court offense. It really comes down to, can they get to the free throw line with all the fears drama and him under a microscope right now against the number one team at avoiding fouls defensively in the country. I just think this is a nightmare matchup and a statement game for Keaton Wagler and the Illini.
My only worry, I mean, obviously the spot is all, you have Illinois who just won at Nebraska, beat Northwestern by 150 when Northwestern went, I don't know, what they go, 2 of 30 from three. I think Illinois hit 13 threes in the first half, including a half-court buzzer beater. Like you were getting to the peak of Illinois, Michigan State bottoming out. Like from a buy low, sell high perspective, and Illinois has been shooting the three really well. The one weakness on Illinois that I can point to is their efficiency in transition defense. I think they're in like the 25th percentile. Now, if they're making every three and scoring every possession, it doesn't matter. But like if they have an off night, like an overdue off night from three, Michigan State does have a path to some runouts here and then to get the crowd into it. That's like the only wart on Illinois is like if you can actually get in transition. The problem is you have to stop them from scoring to get out in transition, which doesn't happen often. Jim, I'll let you break the tie there. Spot versus the torrid hot team. I don't know. What's
I'll
that
take
line?
Illinois.
Pick?
Yeah, something like one or pick either way. I would think I'll ride with Big Ten man. I'll go with Illinois.
What do you got? What else? What do you got? Well, here's your. You can start with this in the SEC. That this was going to be one of my favorites. So I completely agree with you here.
Yeah, I swiped it from you. You hinted at talking about Tennessee earlier. I'll go ahead and do that. I was chopping it up with my buddy, a listener to BBOC, Al K. So I got to give him a shout out. But it's a little very similar, really, to the angle I had last week with Illinois road revenge at Nebraska. I'm going to do that with Tennessee. They lost at home to Kentucky in a game that they controlled the entire way. We're up double digits most of the first half, still up most of the second half until a feverish Kentucky run late. They grabbed over 50% of their misses, which I think they're going to do again. Now they let Kentucky get after it on the offensive glass too. That's a little bit concerning. But we talked about the Ascension. Gillespie, I think, has a huge game against a team that doesn't really have a great point guard. They got some length in the backcourt, but I think Gillespie kind of has his way just as he did in the first matchup when he had 24 points, 8 assists. I just think they're better. And like that spot I always love of road revenge where they blew the game at home against a team that they're better than. And now they go on the road. It's going to be right around pick -1 again, just like the Illinois game we discussed. I'll take the Vols there on the road. I love that spot.
I completely agree. And one of the warts for Tennessee is that they will turn it over a bunch, like that. But Kentucky's defense doesn't pressure you, and they're not going to turn you over, so they can't. They're not really going to fully exploit that. My one thought is, do you like? Does it move the needle at all for you if Akpara plays or doesn't? I mean, some of their guys that have, some of their younger, like I've been impressed with Dwayne Brown's minutes, and the uptick in his usage. Does it matter to you if Akpara plays or not?
I think I'd like him in there, but I'm still betting it if he's out. I mean, Brown got hype in the preseason, like out of their camp. It wasn't quite Keaton Wagler hype, but they're like, oh, this is an underrated freshman who's going to contribute. And when Cade Phillips went down, he ascended into a bigger role. They're getting a little more out of Estrella. And then Jalen Carey's just been a complete animal, like perfect
Yep.
fit for their scheme. And I think I'm okay with him getting more minutes if that's what it comes down to.
Yeah, should dominate the offensive glass here. Uh, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna look for another team to sell high on. I've been impressed with them lately, but I think we might get a decent price to fade them here. I'm gonna go to the ACC, potentially look to fade NC State as a maybe a double-digit favorite against Va Tech. They're coming off that win against SMU where they were white hot in the second half against a bad SMU defense. But I mean, if you look their last five wins, they beat Clemson in overtime. They lost at home to Georgia Tech. They beat Pitt, Syracuse, Wake, SMU. I think, and look, they're shooting like, I don't know, over that stretch, like 45% from three. Their defense still leaves a lot to be desired, in my opinion. And in this particular matchup, uh, like NC State wants their best asset on their defense is they turn you over. They can turn you over. Vatek doesn't turn the ball over. Uh, I mean, Vatek's defense, they can get crushed on the offensive glass, not a strength of NC State. So I don't think this is a terrible matchup for Vatek. I think they can keep this within single digits. So I'll be looking at the Hokies in a decent matchup, decent sell high spot. I mean, they played Duke really tough. I mean, that was another meltdown. I don't know how that game ended. I bought that line went up. I bought Vatek. We heard about some illnesses with Duke. It was like a 6 point game with like four to go, and they just didn't score again. The boot missed. Everyone will feel the pain of this. Whenever you have an underdog that is like in the number the whole second half, the worst thing that can ever happen. Say you have like I had plus 12 and a half, plus 13 with Vatek. There's three to go. The favorite is up eight. They're at the line for a 1-1. Miss it. They get the offensive rebound. I could bet my net worth that there's a three coming, and then Boozer hits a three, and it is the worst. The other worst swing is when you miss a front end. You know that there's gonna be a transition three. The 1-1 swings are just absolutely vicious. But yeah, I'll be looking at the Hokies catching a fat number. Also, week off from that Duke game. NC State went down, won a thriller against SMU, so extra time to prepare for a good schematic coach in Mike Young. So I like that spot for Vatek. Greg, what else you got?
I'm going to the Hoosiers back home from a West Coast trip here. Obviously, an impressive 2 out of 3 stretch with Purdue and UCLA victories. That double overtime game against UCLA, I just think that took their legs out. They end up succumbing to fatigue and losing to Muss's Trojans. Now they're back in Assembly Hall against a Wisconsin team that doesn't really defend at all, that has played 3 straight games at the Kohl Center, that has survived a couple straight where they've fallen behind double digits, down 10 early to Ohio State, getting blitzed at home to Minnesota before Furies come back in the second half. I think if their slow starts continue against Indiana, this could be just a bury them spot. We have seen Wisconsin get blown out in a couple different games early in the season. That BYU game sticks out in my memory, and Nebraska was a 30-point loss as well. I think it's a game that totally comes down to offensive execution. If you think about the 2 stars on each side, I think Indiana has more answers with Connerway back off the bench and Enright, who did an amazing job against Braden Smith a couple weeks ago. I think he can handle Boyd a little bit, turn it into Blackwell versus Wilkerson at home at Assembly Hall. I like Indiana's chances to bounce back.
Like the look. Greg, Jim, what do you got?
I'll hit 2 at the same time because they're kind of similar angles where I like a coach owning another coach. One is UC Irvine. Gonna be +1, +2 at UC Santa Barbara. They've won 5 straight against Santa Barbara. They've covered for the last 5 in those games. Russell Turner's been an institution in this league for years, like has built Irvine into a total powerhouse. And Pasternak's been good at Santa Barbara, but more of a talent accumulator. And I think when he plays a team of similar-ish talent like Irvine, they really struggle. They struggle against that defense because they can't manufacture good shots inside. Anteater's always, always good on the interior defense. And then Iowa State against Baylor. This is a big number. It's 16 at Ken Palm. I don't know what it'll be in the market. But Greg, can you tell me the last time Scott Drew covered against Iowa State?
Oh, God. Tell me like 5 years ago.
Yeah, we hadn't heard of COVID yet. It was January of 2020. And he is 0-9 against the spread against Otzelberger. He's 0 for his last 11 against Iowa State in general. It's just a terrible matchup. The physicality, the pressure defense gets into their guards. They can't create on the perimeter. They have no interior scoring at all. So they just kind of short circuit the offense before it can get started. Iowa State crushes them on the boards. This will be the biggest line that they've faced in that time span, but it's also the worst Baylor team and probably the best Iowa State team. So I'm going to lay that number just based on an incredible historical ownership of the matchup between those two.
I I can't argue with your logic with UC Irvine, but I'm all the way in on the Gauchos. I think they're the best team in the Big West.
How
I mean,
dare
they've
you?
been
How dare you?
since Little got back. I mean, they've been an absolute wagon. Now, there's some 3-point help on both ends, but I love this offense, and I think they're a rocket ship. I think they're going to win the Big West. Which I can't wait for that tournament. By the way, it's going to be very very competitive.
Yep.
Yeah, can't argue with you on Iowa State. I do see that by the time you listen to this, you already know the result. But Barber took a bunch of money again tonight against UC Davis. I will throw out. Let's go, Jim. I know that you said I don't know if you want to mention any specifically, but you said you're going to like a lot of the home teams. By the way, bring back Bracket Buster. I know that I think the reason they stopped it, one of my favorite Saturdays of the year, especially from as a bettor, there's nothing better than you break up conference action. You can look at like the matchups, the X's and O's, and they would pit. Oh my God, if you people that are too young to remember Bracket Buster, they would take. You didn't know the schedule ahead of time. They would take the best mid majors, pit them together to give them a chance to get another resume boosting win. I think it ended up hurting teams more than helping. Like that's what they thought, and then I don't know, maybe money was in it. I don't know why it stopped. One of my favorite Saturdays, but the replacement is this Max Sunbelt Challenge. Obviously not as sexy, but you like a lot. You're gonna like a lot of the home teams there.
Yeah, I just like, especially if you're not Miami of Ohio, who's got something to play for. Like this is a non-conference game where you got to go down to the south, way out of your geographic footprint in the middle of February. I don't buy it. And last year, I don't have the exact numbers, but I bet every single home team when the Sun Belt teams went up to the MAC. I think it went like 8-4 or 7-5, and I just buy that it's always going to be profitable. That you're getting teams that have kind of folded in for the year or just have no reason to be worried about this game. Maybe you get some starter rest going out of their footprint. I like a lot of the home teams here, and I know you've got a couple specific ones you like.
Yeah, I mean, my favorite one that I like is South Alabama against Buffalo. You have Buffalo coming off that close loss against Miami of Ohio, so maybe a little bit flat here, traveling non-conference. But from a matchup perspective, you might say, okay, Buffalo can shoot the three really well, and they can. They have shooters, so they're going up against the most zone-heavy defense uh, in the country. That just they're the opposite of Merrimack. They just beg you to shoot threes. But I think that they're just going to they bait you into a lot of bad threes. They're going to bait Buffalo into a ton of bad shots here. And because of that South Alabama defense, they're really bad on the defensive glass. Buffalo is a horrid offensive rebounding team. And then on the other end, most importantly, South Alabama, all they want to do is get to the rim. That's it. At any cost, get to the rim. It's just a rim attacking offense, slashers. Buffalo is one of the worst rim defenses in the country. So I think South Alabama on both ends. Obviously, there's some variance here. Like Buffalo could hit 17 threes, but I think the spot and matchup is very favorable to South Alabama here. I don't know if Buffalo's going to be all the way locked in for that zone. Probably end up taking a ton of bad threes in that game, and then they're not good on the offensive glass to get those second and third opportunities. Greg, what else you got?
I'm looking for a tag team from Jim here when he started his last round with some coaches that have dominated. I thought you might be pivoting to Kelvin Sampson against Kevin Young here, following Houston's combined, I think, 53-point margin of victory in two meetings last year against BYU. This BYU team's reeling nature right now, I think, is not solved. And I don't think it's going to be solved with a juiced up home environment against a team just as talented one, but as physical as Houston can be on the inside. I think I watched both those games last year, and a BYU team that certainly was a little bit less athletic, maybe a lot less athletic, just looked like they played completely different sports than last year's Houston. Obviously, AJ DeBonsa counteracts this a little bit, but who is Rob Wright going to guard in this game? How can they possibly match up with that three-headed Houston backcourt monster? All the numbers show that BYU's defense is fading from the 60s nationally against tier one opponents here. Both these teams, by the way, without a win against a KenPom top 20 opponent, which is crazy this late in the season. But I think Houston gets up for this one and continues their winning ways. Anything to add, Jim?
Yeah, Houston's not going to have a win against a Ken Palm top 20 team because they're going to knock BYU out of it after this game. That's what I'm thinking. Yeah, Rob Wright has struggled big against big backcourts, long backcourts, athletic ones like Arizona's, like Kansas a little bit, and I think he has major problems again here against that Sharp, Flemings, Uzan. All those guys can guard him and wrap him up a little bit. And then I think Houston's offensive rebounding has been an issue for BYU in the past too. Keita's kind of a one-man wrecking crew in there, but if he's in foul trouble at all or just overwhelmed by the multiple bodies that Houston can throw at him, I like the Cougars too. Just that style travels so well. They didn't lose a single Big 12 road game last year. They only lost one this year, was at Texas Tech in a big time shootout where Texas Tech shot the lights out. I think BYU's in a tough spot right now. They might lose 5 of 6. That's kind of wild to say.
I mean, the spot is all BYU. Like
Yeah.
it's like, do you have? I mean, Houston got caught UCF in a great spot off their huge win, and but other than that, I mean, over the past month, who's Houston beat? And then you have BYU who's lost what 4 or 5, and but it's Texas Tech, Arizona, Kansas, and then they were a little flat against Oklahoma State. But there's issues. Their defense has some issues. Their spacing. It's basically just Saunders. So like everything is clogged for Devonsta. I mean, he's still so good. He's getting like 30, but the key for them is let me see what he did. Yeah, I mean, not a good game again. The key for them in this game in particular, and I think going forward, is they need Kennard Davis to not be a corpse. And they need him to stretch defenses and he needs to make threes. Like we saw him against Arizona have a decent game. But other than, I mean, he's been a ghost for like a month and I've been really disappointing because they had injuries. Their injuries early in the season really killed them and their depth, and they're just so reliant on the big three. And then there's, as you mentioned, Wright struggles kind of with physicality. Then you never know what you're going to get from Davis. And then, if Saunders has an off night, like, oof, gets ugly quick. So, all right, we do have. I guess I'll throw out Auburn against Alabama. We already talked about selling Alabama. Also, you have Auburn week off after that loss against Tennessee. Alabama emotional win over A&M. I think it's a good spot. I think it's a decent matchup. I think they'll dominate the offensive glass, and they'll get whatever they want. So I like Auburn at home in the jungle against Alabama. We do have another big game. UNC Duke. We haven't even mentioned it yet. That line, I think I saw openers of 5.5, and then it got up to 6.5. Is that where it's still sitting? Let me double check. There's some openers out there. But I know that you like a side there, Greg. Jim, do you have an initial lean?
I don't. That one I'm very of a split opinion. So part of me thinks like Duke hasn't played much lately besides Louisville, who's kind of a wreck, a mess, and maybe Duke gets a little bit of an awakening here. And they've got an athlete to guard Cam Boozer, but nobody can guard Cam Boozer. I'm not going to talk myself into that.
Yeah, there's times where I watch Duke. Their defense is obviously excellent, and there's times where I watch Duke and Boozer is so good that like their offense, like sometimes they'll turn it over a bit too much. The shot selection isn't great. So I don't know, but this UNC defense that it can be, oof, it can get ugly. Now UNC's playing better, and a part of the UNC defensive issues, like teams are shooting like 50% from three over like a 2 week stretch, so it wasn't as bad as it looked, but there are definitely some holes there. But they've kind of settled the backcourt situation a bit in Carolina. At the point, which was an issue, letting Trimble play off the ball. And then obviously I can't wait for Caleb Wilson versus Boozer. But one of the keys here in this game might be Visar, outside shooting, bringing the Duke bigs out. But Greg, I know you like the heels here. It looks like 6.5 is the number out there right now.
Yeah, and if it's at 6 or more, I think I got to play it. I jumped on it at 6.5, and I think you nailed it. I like the bigs for Carolina in this game. I think Visar can space him out a little bit with Big Pat. I think Caleb Wilson's familiarity with AAU teammate Cam Boozer is going to matter in this game. Now, obviously, look, being friends with Cam Boozer, I don't think necessarily means you're going to have success against him. But I think when they've got that type of size, and it really is one of those things, if you've seen it before, I think you're a little less spooked by just his physical prowess. And, you think about what killed North Carolina's defense earlier in the season, maybe a week ago. I don't want to say like it was a month ago, but it's been guard play. It's been guards that can score and shoot the lights out. Who on Duke are we worried about? Is Caleb Foster going to go for 30 to win this game? I think that's a win for the Carolina defense in the first place. If it happens, maybe you get like a weird Nick Hamenia game or something that, or maybe they just lose Isaiah Evans and he goes for 30. I don't know. If he does that in Chapel Hill, I think you tip your cap to him. I think this is a good spot for a Carolina team that honestly has won some big games at home already this year and got up for that big win at Virginia. That was a big one. Duke, I think, might be looking at those Louisville results sort of, I don't want to say overconfident, but those might have said more about Louisville than they did about Duke. And you might look up to a slow start in Chapel Hill and Carolina can capitalize.
Yeah, well, Duke has turnover issues, but Carolina will never, ever, ever, ever turn you over. Um, but I think that basically this comes down to Carolina shooting. Like that's basically what's going to decide this cover. Do they make enough threes or not? But 6.5, I kind of lean your way. And then you have one more before we get out of here. Penn State, who I think is down 50 to Michigan, the last I checked.
Yeah.
Will you like them? Did they play? Who do they play? USC?
This is Sunday against USC. It's a total spot bet. And yes, I think they're down 46 with 7 minutes left right now. Just USC, Baker Mazara's injury coming off 2 straight wins, but the home win against Indiana that was a little juiced up. Now take the sleepiest road trip in the Big Ten every single season across the country to Happy Valley to take on a Penn State team that, yes, is getting blitzed right now, but I think at minimum it's that spooky, empty environment. Elijah Arenas was awful for his first 3 games of his career, and then he went completely nuclear at home to beat Indiana. If they have to bank on that again on the road, I'll just take the points in what I expect to be a letdown spot from us.
I
Might
I
get
bet
better value with them losing by 50. You might get a little better value. That's great. You love
yeah.
that.
I agree that it's a spot I had circled, and Penn State's so young, and this is a horrible spot. They got their first Big Ten win. They go to Michigan, a Michigan team that they um, didn't. Penn State almost beat them. So like
Yeah.
Michigan, you have their full attention, but it's such a young team. Like Penn State is so young that I like betting them at home rather than on the road against monsters. So and they've been pretty competitive at home. I mean, you look at some of their games, right? They just beat Minnesota. They were in it against UCLA. They almost beat Michigan. Um, they were in it all the way to the end against Michigan State. So they've had some promising home results this year that can give you confidence there. But I guess one word, favorite play of the weekend, obviously number dependent, but if they come out where you think it is, I'll go South Alabama. Jim,
Tennessee money line right around pick.
Greg.
Houston, same.
All right, that'll do it for us. Thanks to Jim and Greg for joining me. Thanks to our producer David on the back end. Most importantly, thanks to all of you for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe, unsubscribe, tell a friend, tell an enemy. Leave a 5-star review if you get a chance. Make sure you check out our other episodes. We have Three-Man Weave, always do a great job on the early week episode. We have our midweek episode. Those guys kill it. And then we'll be back next week with add another future, talk about the week that was, preview next weekend. Thanks again for tuning in. We'll catch y'all later. Cheers.